With a dip in mortgage rates this September, closed home sales in October just increased to a 40-month high, and pending home sales increased by 20%. We're also seeing a big increase in the amount of people who are listing their house for sale in California. That rose to a 3-year high for the month of October. Home prices also posted a big gain compared to the previous month, which is highly unusual for this time of year. I have a lot to share in today's video. Thank you so much for joining me. And by the way, if you guys are interested in buying or selling a house in the greater Sacramento area, or we also cover the San Francisco Bay Area, then please email me at jason@meetjasonwalter.com. But I have a lot to share in today's video, some big changes compared to the previous month regarding prices, housing inventory, and much, much more. So let's begin. Let's have a look at the slideshow from the California Association of Realtors. I'll also provide my own analysis, especially looking at home prices, how that compares to years past. So here's a snapshot for the state as a whole. And by the way, this is part one of my two-part videos series I make each and every month. Part two will be at what's happening at the countywide level. But at today's video, we're talking about what's happening for the state as a whole. So sales, and by the way, this is only single-family houses only, based on this video, single family. That rose by 9.5% compared to 1 year ago, which again is the biggest increase or biggest year-over-year increase in 40 months. More on that here soon. And also pending home sales also skyrocketed as well, rising by 20% compared to 1 year ago. That was the biggest year-over-year increase going all the way back until April of 2021. Big changes here. Meanwhile, the median sale price in California increased to nearly $889,000. That's an increase of 5.8% compared to October of 2023. Again, this is highly unusual to see prices increase, not from the previous year, but prices actually increased compared to September. On top of that, we're only about $12,000 less than the all-time record high that was set back in May this year. Meanwhile, the unsold inventory index, or the month supply, is at 3.1 months. That's an increase of 14.8% year over year. And also add this in today's video, the all-time record low for the month supply was at 1.2 months set back in December of 2021, which of course makes sense. We had all-time record highs in home prices for much of the spring home buying season that year, or in 2022, I should say. Also, for comparison's sake, the all-time record high was set back in February of 1991 for data that goes all the way back until 1990. That back then it was at 18.8 months. Now it's only 3.1 months. So at 3.1 months right now, this is higher compared to the all-time record lows, but not nearly as high as the craziness back in the early 1990s. And on top of that, back during the Great Recession, the highs back then was at around 16.8 months. Now it's only 3.1 months. In regards to how fast or how slow houses are selling, homes overall are still selling very quickly, around 3 weeks on average at 25 days. That is, though, an increase of 25% from October of 2023. In regards to sales, I have a lot to share regarding that. Again, that rose by 9.5% year over year. That's the biggest increase in about 40 months. Absolutely crazy. In my opinion, I was kind of figuring out, like, why did sales increase so much in October? And the reason for this, in my opinion, is really due to two main factors, which I noted right here. This is from a dip in rates in September, because again, rates in September is when home buyers got their offer accepted. Then in general, they probably closed 1 month later in October. So looking at stats for closed home sales in October, that's really what our housing market was like back in September. And therefore, we have to look at what happened rates then, right? So in September, mortgage rates on average decreased to a 2-year low, but also due to the fact that mortgage rates spiked back in September of 2023. Back then, it increased to 7.2%. At that time, that was a 23-year high, which caused closed home sales to decrease by 12% in October of 2023 compared to October of 2022. So, big picture, the big increase up by 9.5% year over year is really due to the fact that sales plummeted 1 year ago, but also because mortgage rates absolutely decreased greatly back in September this year. Of course, please comment below with your thoughts regarding this. Why do you guys think that home sales increased so much this October? On top of that, they rose by 4.7% compared to the previous month, and sales overall increased to a 3-month high. Now, having said that, really over the past 2.5 years, sales have remained very, very low. We should be seeing around 400,000 home sales, and now we're less than 265,000. Now, here's something that's really interesting as well, because I've been talking about this for quite some time. The mix in sales kind of like skewing the figures here. So we saw a big increase in sales of over $1 million. So sales this October compared to 1 year ago in the range of $1 million to just under $2 million rose by 16%. But the biggest gain was sales over $2 million. That increased by 31%. And in contrast, we saw sales decrease for less than $400,000. And now looking at mix in sales, around 35% of all home sales this October were for over $1 million. 1 year ago, we're at 32%. And in contrast, we're seeing a lack of home sales for less than $500,000, generally speaking across the state. 1 year ago, that was at 26%. Now it's only at 22%. Now looking at a lead indicator, this is pending home sales, a measure of contracts being signed between buyers and sellers. That surged by nearly 21% this October from 12 months ago. Huge increase, the highest levels since April of 2021. This implies that closed home sales in next month, once we report November's numbers, will likely increase as well. We potentially could see home prices also increase in November as well, which would be very, very unusual because we're seeing a big increase in pending home sales at the upper range of the market. It says pending sales climbed more rapidly in top price segments. And that is this right here. Over $1 million is basically the dark red line and the blue line, which is the biggest increase of pending home sales for all other price segments in California. In regards to home prices, I have a lot to share as well. According to the California Association of Realtors, the California median home price grew for the 16th consecutive month. That's based on prices compared to the previous 12 months. It did increase by 2.4% compared to the previous month. Again, highly unusual, which I'll share some data regarding that. And again, it rose by 5.8% year over year. In regards to that, here is my own analysis of their data. And I only pulled these two columns, which is the date and the price, going all the way back until the year 1991. And of course, I have access to this information because I am a member of the California Association of Realtors. Anyways, for October, like I mentioned, home prices for closed home sales are mostly based on what the housing market was like back in September. And again, what happened in September, the average 30-year fixed rate, according to Freddie Mac, decreased to 6.18%. That was the lowest reading going all the way back until September of 2022. In other words, rates decreased to a 2-year low. However, as you guys probably all know, rates have increased quite a bit ever since then. So we'll likely see home price growth slow down in the coming months, especially as we are in currently the slower time of the housing market. Also have a look at this. Overall for October, the median sale price was at $888,740. Of course, that was a big increase compared to September, up by about $20,000. Very, very unusual. Home prices tend to decrease in October, by the way. The increase, like I mentioned, is probably due to the fact that we had a big dip in mortgage rates in the previous month. But on top of that, 1 year ago, we saw a big increase in rates to more than a 20-year high. Also, according to CER, the September to October price gain was the biggest in about 45 years. Absolutely insane. Just mind-blowing to say the least. And I'll share some data regarding that. So the year-over-year change up by 5.8% is the biggest year-over-year gain since July this year. At that time, it rose by 6.5%. It's also higher compared to the gain we saw back in October of 2023. Back then, we saw a gain of 5.2%. Like the association mentions, this marks the 16th consecutive month in which home prices increased compared to the previous year. This is after 8 consecutive months of decreases. Quite the turnaround here in California. However, the 5.8% increase is still lower, much lower, compared to the historical averages, because the average October year-over-year change going all the way back until the year of 2010 is an increase of 8%, whereas this year it rose by 5.8%. Also, due to this gain we saw in October, we're only about 19,000 less than the all-time record high that was set back in May this year at $908,000. In addition, let's have a look at the gain in prices from September, a giant increase of 2.4%, quite a bit different than the 2.3% decrease we saw in the previous month. Again, very, very unusual because the average change from September through October, going back to the year of 2010, is a decrease of 1.3%, not an increase of 2.4%. Additionally, this gain of 2.4% is quite the turnaround compared to 1 year ago. 1 year ago, prices decreased by 0.4%, which is this right here, falling by 0.4% compared to September. This year up by 2.4%. Here's something added in today's video, which I kind of want to provide some context regarding supply compared to price gains. So the biggest increase since 1991 regarding California's median home sale price rose by a staggering 39.1% year over year compared to May of 2020. That was a giant increase to say the least. In contrast, the biggest decline since 1991 was a 41.5% decrease that was set back in January 09 compared to January of 2008. And for comparison's sake, again, look at the month supply. Back in May of 2021, the month supply was only 1.8 months. And back in January of 2009, it was at a staggering 7.3 months. Also for context, the peak during the Great Recession was at 16.6 months. That was set back in January of 2008. As of October this year, we're only at 3.1 months. Therefore, the month supply back in January of 2008 was 5 times the supply we're having this October. For anyone who says we're going to see a housing crash in California, just like we saw back in 2008, really? Back then, 41.5% decrease in prices when the month supply was at 7.3 months and the peak was at 16.6 months. And right now, the month supply is only at 3.1 months. I understand if you guys want to see prices decrease in California, especially if you are renting, you want to buy a house, I get it. We have this affordability issue, but the data does not support home prices crashing anytime soon. In any case, I want to look at how the gain this year at 5.8% compares to years past, especially looking at pre-COVID levels. So the change in home prices based on the median sale price from October 18 through October 2019 was an increase of 5.8%, right in line with this year. In contrast, 17 through 18, it rose by only 4.7%. It did increase by 6.4% in 2017, but back in October 07 through October 2008, it fell by nearly 39%. Absolutely crazy. This is the last metric I want to share regarding prices. The change over the past 4 years is an increase of 25%. Also, a giant increase of 47% over the past 5 years. All right, let's get back to the slideshow from CAR. So here's the average sale price to final list price ratio that has been paid at around 100% for about 10 months. It says here it's below 100% for the first time in about 10 months at 99.9%. This means on average for all the houses that did sell in October, they sold for 0.1 percentage points less than the seller's final list price. They also provided this as well. This is the share of houses selling above the seller's asking price that fell to a 9-month low. I'll add this right here. Duh. The share of price reduction, not the share price, the share of houses selling over the seller's asking price tends to peak during the spring home buying season, not in October, right? So to me, this is a dumb headline here because this is seasonal. The peak set back in April of 2022, the spring home buying season, was at 72.9%. Now it's only at 38.1%. But that's not comparing apples to apples because, again, this is October where home prices, home sales, etc., tend to wind down, and it's not even comparable to the craziness during the spring home buying season, especially April of 2022, when we had average mortgage rates close to 3.5% to about 4%. Having said that, at 38% right now, it is lower compared to 1 year ago at 42%. So this means that about 38% of all houses that sold above the seller's asking price, right? This, by the way, is higher compared to October of 2019, 2018, but more or less in line with October of 2017. Here's a headline as well. Mortgage payment growth turned negative for the third consecutive month. So your average monthly housing payment is actually lower compared to 12 months ago. That's because mortgage rates decrease. So take a look at this. So your average monthly housing payment decreased by 6.1% year over year. So that decrease in your average monthly housing payment is really due to the fact that mortgage rates decrease, So for example, in October, the average rate increased to 7.62% in October last year. That, by the way, was more than a 20-year high. Now, this October, it decreased to 6.4%. I added this note here as well. I think it's more relevant to share average rates back in September, the previous month, because that's when the home buyer locked in the rate and when they got their offer accepted. So looking at stats in today's video, talking about October stats, we really should be comparing mortgage rates in September and not October, because these are actually average rates in October over the past couple of years. In any case, we all can agree though that rates were much higher 1 year ago than they are right now. So in any case, getting back to this chart, the decrease in your average monthly housing payment is really due to the fact that mortgage rates decreased greatly from 1 year ago, but even though prices rose by 5.8%. So your average monthly housing payment decreased even though prices rose by nearly 6%. All right, let's have a look at inventory numbers. Again, the month supply is at 3.1 months. I add this as well. This is more or less on par with pre-COVID levels. So for example, the average for the month of October from 2017 through 19 was at 3.2 months. So at 3.1 months, this is more or less a normal level in the month supply in California. Here's also some good news for home buyers. If you guys are looking to buy a house right now, we have approximately 30.9% more houses for sale compared to 12 months ago. This marks the 8th consecutive month in which inventory levels rose by double digits compared to the previous year. Much different compared to the fallout of inventory that we saw back in late 2019 through early 2022. Not only did we see a big increase in sales this October, we also saw a big gain in new listings. That rose by 18.9% year over year. There was 20,285 new listings. That in fact is actually a 3-year high for the month of October because it's higher than last year, 22 and 2021. However, it's still lagging behind pre-COVID levels when on average we should be seeing around 23,000 to 26,000 new listings hit the market in October. This October, a little bit less than 21,000. A couple more slides I want to share with you guys. Let's talk about how fast houses are selling. On average, again, it's at 25 days. 1 year ago is at 20 days. So this means it's taking about 5 days longer on average to sell a house in California. Also, the share of price reductions is at 37.1%. So approximately 1/3 of all houses for sale have reduced their asking prices here in California for October. For comparison's sake, at 37%, this is much higher compared to the all-time record lows at around 15% that was set back in around April of 2021, but not as high as the peak of around 45% that was set back in late 2022. With that said, please email me if you guys are interested in buying or selling a house in the greater Sacramento area, or again, in the San Francisco Bay Area. My team and I would love to help you. But if you guys got any value out of today's video, then please hit the like button. I greatly appreciate that. Have an amazing day, and we'll see you in the next video.